Do you consider yourself to be a good listener? Being a good listener means that you not only possess the ability to take in information, but also have the gift of giving it back. How so? Because being a good listener means that you aren't merely waiting for your turn to talk, but you're actually engaged in interpreting and remembering key parts of someone else's speech and story. It means that you're able to retain details that matter to the speaker and are able to articulate back to them what you've understood. In essence, it means that you can ask them questions to further the depth of their sharing with you. Now, I get it. Not all conversations will interest you, and not all people are saying things that you care about particularly. But what about people who do matter to you? Your family, your friends, new people you've met and are trying to establish a relationship with? Would those closest to you say that you're a good listener? Why should it matter, you say? What does it matter what they think of me? Well, I'm not saying that you should care what everyone thinks of you. In fact, contrary to what we're talking about, it's none of your business what people actually think of you. Don't worry though, we'll talk about that part in another video. What I'm saying is that if you pride yourself on becoming a better person, on growing the depth of your life experiences and expectations, you should probably work on being a better listener. Again, you say, why? How does this help me? It absolutely helps you by, first of all, grounding you in the present moment, which focuses your thoughts and attention on what's in front of you. Second, in so doing, it automatically puts your higher faculties to work by activating your perception, your will, your reason, your intuition, your memory, and even your imagination. It's through the use of our higher faculties that we grow and become more self-actualized. Let's break down the flow of information and then take each higher faculty into account when applying them to active or good listening. So, communication between two people must pass through a number of stages, and the message can easily be lost in translation at any one or more junctures. Let's go over it real quick. First, there's the thought that is formed by the speaker. That thought then must be verbalized through said speaker. Is the speaker even saying what their own original thought was? Are they able to convey with their own vocabulary what they want to say? Is the speaker using a certain inflection or tone that puts emphasis on the right parts of the speech that they wished to put special attention on? The speech then gets picked up by the second person or listener. Is the listener even hearing what is being said? As the audible words go from the listener's ears into their own brain, is the listener even translating the speech into something similar that the speaker said? Finally, does the listener apply their own meaning to the words and then interpret the speaker's words differently than what the speaker was saying to begin with? Now hit that ball back and forth like a fast-moving tennis match and you've got a two-way conversation. We haven't even talked about body language and interpreting facial expressions. Let's save that for later though. And for now, let's stick with our higher faculties for being a good listener. Let's start with perception. So when you listen with your own positive or at least open perception, you can take in the message of what's being said as intended, or hopefully as close as intended. This is because your perception is the idea that your focused mind is allowing the speaker's words to not only flow into your mind, but also perceive the message as either simple conveyance of facts and or truth, or possibly perceive the speech as deceptive and manipulative, or any combination thereof. You can also listen for subtext, that is, the meaning behind the meaning. Or a different way of putting it, people will often speak about a subject, but veil it with words to sound like something else. People often use subtext through humor or when flirting or using sarcasm. There is deeper meaning to what they're saying, but you have to use your keen perception to pick up on it. Now, you cannot rely simply on your perception because everyone is shaped by their own experience and history, and their perception may not be completely reliable. This brings up the other higher faculties for you to use, starting with your reason. Is the message that you're hearing reasonable? Do the facts line up with the story being told? Is there any cause and effect in the sequence of words and ideas? If there is a lot of emotion involved, do the words seem to match the emotions of the speaker? Now, by using your intuition, you can apply and compare your own life experience and knowledge to that of the speaker. Does the message seem authentic? If they've told you a similar story before, does this one make sense for what information you already have and know about the speaker? And what about your memory? As we listen to the speaker, we can start to remember things that they may have told us before, or if it's new information, especially when meeting someone for the first time or talking with someone you're still getting to know, you can add their words and stories to your short-term memory, and if you're paying enough attention, to your long-term memory. By recalling simple details back to the other person, both while in conversation but also at a later time, you are showing the other person that you care about what they've told you. And giving someone full attention, as in being an active or good listener, is very fulfilling for the relationship. It shows that you actually listen to and empathize with them. By recalling these details, you show genuine interest, which is both kind and flattering, and you can still use your higher faculties such as your will and imagination. Having a good conversation can be tough when surrounded by distractions. You may be in a crowded place, or maybe there's a loud TV on in the background, or your phone is in front of you. Use your will. One of the most respectful and considerate things you can do for yourself and the speaker is to be present. Change setting and location, if at all possible, to one where you can better focus on each other. If all of these noisy screens can be turned off or put away, use your will and get rid of these distractions. And if the conversation is important and the timing is sudden, then again, use your will to block out any distractions as best as you can and focus on the speaker. Finally, you can apply your higher faculty of imagination. Use your imagination in tandem with the speaker's words to form pictures in your mind of the stories they are sharing. You can then instantly use those pictures to turn the words into creative ideas that you may share with them, just as I am doing now. So, are you a good listener? Do you actively use your higher faculties such as your perception, your will, your reason, your intuition, your memory, and even your imagination? Again, you may be asking, I see how this helps me to be a better listener, but how does it help me in general? Like, how does this make me any better of a person than I am now? How does this help me with any kind of self-actualization? Well, as I've said before, we need each other. There are rare examples of people surviving on their own, either out in the wilderness, away from humanity, or even in the wild concrete jungles among the throngs of citizens around them. I know that there are people who live a lonely lifestyle. It's rare that that's by choice. Even those of you who consider yourselves introverts often have a close friend or two outside of the family. And it's important that you discover the best in yourself. Again, you say, why? How? Well, the fact that you're even watching and listening to this video should indicate to you that you're curious of how your life could be better. You don't want to simply exist and consume and pass on. You want more meaning in your life. And that's the whole point of this. In order to get more out of life, you have to put more into it. You have to do the work, which means discovering what makes you you and what makes you want to keep on going. And further, how your life could be better than what it's been. By being a good and active listener, you will transform yourself into a magnet for other good people. Isn't that one of your biggest anxieties in your life? Where are all the good people at? How can I meet someone of like-minded interests who will want to spend time with me? You may even be searching for a life partner and are wondering how you're going to meet them. I'm giving you a big part of the recipe. I'm handing it to you right now. When two people meet and have a conversation, there's an exchange of information, right? So what's the secret to being interesting? Believe it or not, it's being the good listener. I know for some of you that sounds counterintuitive. You're thinking, but I'm a great speaker. I can always make people smile and laugh with my stories, and I have plenty of friends. And if that is you, I really am happy for you. But I would also challenge you to do a self-inventory of all of the people who you think are your friends, and really think about how many of them you have a real connection with. Listen, I'm not suggesting that your life and friendships aren't fulfilling. I'm simply curious for you to be curious about who your friends really are. So, how does being a good and active listener improve your life? How can I be interesting and interested at the same time? Part of being a good listener is as simple as asking for the speaker to elaborate or clarify certain details. Again, you're not only showing interest, but you're allowing the flow of attention and information to be as clear as possible. And of course, you can speak. Of course, you are one half of the conversation. Being a good listener does not mean being a sounding board or a lapdog who's just there to bounce words off of. You also have your turn to speak and show that you've been listening by the choice words you use. When meeting someone new or getting to know someone, it's important that you have some kind of balance in the conversation. Some people are natural listeners and would prefer the other person to do much of the talking. You should do another self-check and find out which is your preferred style. Do you prefer to talk more, listen more, or kind of find a balance? It can be difficult if you and the other person both love to talk all the time. This is where you can really put to practice your higher faculties, as I'm sure the rapid firing of words will put you both into higher modes of listening. But whatever your style of talking is, you can always be a good listener, and it really is to your advantage. As I've said before, by accurately recalling certain facts, figures, and details of what the other person said, you are showing yourself to be caring and attentive, both qualities that the other person is looking for when wanting to spend time with others. Thus, they are already feeling a connection with you. The good news for those of you who don't like to talk as much is that by being an active listener, that's already enough attention to get something going in terms of spending time together. The other person will probably have something to talk about, and you'll have something to elaborate on. This brings us to an important observation. Do you feel like your conversations with certain people are always one-sided? Does it seem like a particular person is always downloading on you and then not asking anything about your own situation? Sometimes this can be referred to as a fair weather friend. If you find that someone you know or perhaps just met always wants to talk about themselves and doesn't want to talk about you, then you need to reevaluate your relationship. I would suggest that this person may even be what's known as an energy vampire. By that, I mean that the person seems to suck the energy right out of the room or out of you by incessantly talking about themselves and never asking anything about you or how your life is going. Beware, as they tend to latch on to good listeners. What they are really looking for is either a good listener or, the extreme opposite, a person with low self-esteem who doesn't care that they are being used as a lapdog with big eyes and even bigger ears. Look, I'm sure you've encountered this kind of person at least once in your life, and I'm not saying that you are necessarily at either end of the listening spectrum. Sometimes we get caught off guard and we're physically stuck in the space we're in, so we are subjected to this kind of behavior. You can imagine it's already happened when you were in a car, or train or subway compartment, or traveling on a plane, or even in a waiting room. As I've said before, people are often lonely and want someone to talk to or share their story with, and that's okay, as long as it goes both ways and is actually wanted or desired by the listener, in this case, you. If you do find yourself in want of a new friend, any of those cases can be an opportunity to flex your listening skills. But beware, if it turns into a one-way rant and the person still asks for a way to contact you at a later date and time, or even straight up ask you out, ask yourself, do they know anything at all about me, or were they just enamored with my awesome listening skills? Really think about that before you put yourself on the line. Now, as a side note, psychologists and sociologists have noted that when first meeting each other, a lot of men tend to think that anyone who listens to their unending stories is attractive and further thinks that the other person wants to spend more time with him, even though the man knows nothing of this new and exciting person that he's talking at. In other words, a man will talk and never ask any questions, and still tell others that he and his new interest hit it off wonderfully. What? Yes. Now go ask the other person what they thought. In general, a lot of men love to boast and brag and talk about their accomplishments. And even if the other person simply listens and says nothing of themselves, the man will still rate that person as very attractive. This is not usually the case for women. In general, women want to share their stories and compare and contrast their lives and lifestyles and find connections through shared experiences. I say again, this is an overall generalization. Do your own research and make your own conclusions if you disagree. But I suspect many of you are laughing or smirking tongue-in-cheek. Okay, so what's left to do? I encourage you to take your listening skills with you to your next outing, your next meeting, your next get-together, maybe even work on one of your closest relationships in particular. Use your higher faculties, your perception, will, reason, intuition, memory, and your imagination. Become a better and more active listener. Be in the present moment and put your focus and attention on the person you're conversing with. Find out something you didn't know about someone by picking up an important detail or two. Use those details to ask more questions and find out more about this person. And above all, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep going. I believe in you.